Imagine discovering that everything you've been taught about how the world works, that honesty is rewarded, that virtue leads to success, that good people finish first if they just work hard enough, is a carefully constructed lie designed to keep you compliant, while others who understand the real rules play a completely different game. You've been operating according to one set of principles: be kind, be fair, be honest, be good, while watching people who violate those principles systematically outpace you. And instead of questioning whether you've been given false rules, you've internalized the failure as yours. You're not good enough, not smart enough, not worthy enough. When the real problem is simpler and more disturbing, you're playing by the fake rules, while everyone winning is playing by the real ones. This is the trick Niccolo Machiavelli exposed 500 years ago, and it's the same trick still controlling your mind today. The gap between how society claims to work and how it actually works. Between the virtues you're told to embody and the behaviors that actually generate power, wealth, and influence. Between the appearance of morality and the reality of what gets rewarded. Machiavelli wasn't teaching people to be evil. He was revealing that the people already in power were using methods they publicly condemned while privately practiced. He was pulling back the curtain on the fundamental illusion that keeps most people trapped. The belief that the world operates according to the principles it preaches. It doesn't. It never has. And your inability to see this gap, this carefully maintained fiction, is precisely what makes you controllable. Think about it. You've been taught that honesty is the best policy, yet you've watched liars ascend to the highest positions. You've been told hard work leads to success, yet you've seen inheritance and connections outweigh competence. You've been instructed to be humble, yet you've noticed that self-promotion beats silent excellence. You've been assured that goodness will be recognized, yet you've learned that appearing good matters more than being good. Every time you witness this contradiction, you face a choice: question the rules or question yourself. And you've been brilliantly conditioned to always question yourself. Maybe I'm just cynical. Maybe I'm not seeing the whole picture. Maybe good things come to those who wait. But what if your cynicism is actually clarity? What if you're seeing exactly the whole picture and the discomfort you feel is the cognitive dissonance of knowing the truth while being forced to pretend you don't? Here's the paradox that should shatter your worldview. The people teaching you to be virtuous often benefit from your virtue, keeping you predictable, manageable, and non-threatening. Your goodness is their control mechanism. Your morality is their competitive advantage. They need you to believe in principles they have no intention of following, because your adherence to those principles ensures you'll never challenge their position. So which rules are real? Which virtues actually protect you versus which ones just make you easier to exploit? And how much of your life have you already wasted following a moral framework designed not to elevate you, but to neutralize you as competition? Machiavelli's core insight wasn't that you should be cruel. It was that you must understand the difference between what people claim motivates them and what actually motivates them, between the official story and the operational truth. In The Prince, Machiavelli writes, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are." This isn't advice to be deceptive. It's an observation about human psychology that remains true today. People don't respond to who you actually are. They respond to who they perceive you to be. And those who master appearance while you focus on substance will always outmaneuver you. The philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer understood this when he wrote about the world as representation, the idea that we don't experience reality directly, but only our mental representations of it. Your entire life is lived in the gap between how things are and how they appear to be. And the people who control the appearance control your reality. This connects to what Carl Jung called the persona, the social mask we wear. But here's what Jung understood that most people miss. The persona isn't just what you show others, it's what others demand you show them. Society rewards certain performances and punishes authenticity when authenticity threatens the social order. You've learned to perform virtue whether or not you feel virtuous, to perform confidence whether or not you feel capable, to perform certainty whether or not you have any idea what you're doing. Because what Jung revealed is that social success goes not to those who are genuine, but to those who perform the expected role most convincingly. Machiavelli saw this in political power. Jung saw it in psychological development. Both understood the same truth. There's a game being played, and most people don't even know they're playing it. They think they're living according to their values, when they're actually performing scripts written by forces they never questioned. The trap is epistemological. It's about how you know what you know. You've been taught that certain principles are universal, eternal, and self-evidently true. Treat others as you want to be treated. Honesty is the best policy. Good things come to those who wait. These sound like wisdom, but they're actually control mechanisms disguised as virtue. Because here's what Machiavelli observed about power. Those who have it maintain it not through the virtues they preach, but through their understanding of human nature as it actually is, not as it should be. They understand that people are motivated more by fear than love, more by self-interest than altruism, more by the appearance of virtue than virtue itself. And they use your belief in the opposite, your faith in humanity's goodness, your commitment to your principles regardless of outcome, as a weapon against you. Your virtue becomes your vulnerability. Friedrich Nietzsche saw this clearly when he described slave morality, a moral system created by the powerless to make their powerlessness feel virtuous. If you can't win through strength, you create a morality where weakness is rebrained as goodness. If you can't compete through ambition, you create a morality where humility is the highest virtue. If you can't take what you want, you create a morality where wanting itself is sinful. The brilliance of this system is that it keeps the powerless feeling morally superior while remaining materially inferior. You get to feel good about yourself for being generous, honest, and humble, while the people who are selfish, strategic, and ambitious actually shape the world. Machiavelli's insight was that this moral framework isn't discovered truth. It's manufactured control. And the moment you see it for what it is, you face a choice that will define your entire life. Continue playing by rules designed to keep you subordinate, or start operating according to reality as it actually functions. Your belief in the official story is destroying you in ways you're calling bad luck, when they're actually predictable outcomes of playing the wrong game. You're being passed over for promotions, not because you're not qualified, but because you believe competence should speak for itself. Meanwhile, someone less qualified, but more skilled at self-promotion, at managing perceptions, at understanding that appearing capable matters more than being capable, rises above you. You call it unfair. Machiavelli would call it inevitable. You're being exploited in relationships because you believe love means total honesty, complete vulnerability, unconditional giving. Meanwhile, your partner, whether consciously or unconsciously, has learned that maintaining some mystery, some strategic withholding, some calculated display of value keeps you more invested than total transparency ever would. You call it games. Machiavelli would call it understanding human nature. You're losing negotiations because you believe fairness should determine outcomes. Meanwhile, the person across from you understands that outcomes are determined by leverage, information asymmetry, and willingness to walk away. They know what you're willing to accept, but you have no idea what they're willing to offer. You call it ruthless. Machiavelli would call it preparation. The cognitive bias destroying you is called the just world fallacy, the belief that the world is fundamentally fair, that good is rewarded and evil punished. This isn't a truth about the world. It's a psychological defense mechanism that makes an unfair world feel tolerable. You need to believe in justice, because believing otherwise would require confronting a more disturbing reality, that outcomes often have nothing to do with virtue and everything to do with strategy. But your belief in this illusion has consequences beyond personal setbacks. It shapes your entire relationship with reality. You've developed what psychologists call learned helplessness, the conviction that your actions don't meaningfully affect outcomes. But this isn't because you're powerless. It's because you're applying the wrong actions based on the wrong understanding of how things work. You're pushing on doors marked "pull" and concluding that the building is locked when you just never understood the mechanism. Your moral framework has become a prison where you judge yourself by standards no one with actual power follows, where you constrain yourself with principles that exist primarily to constrain people like you, where you've moralized your own limitation and called it integrity. And the cruelest consequence? You've started to resent the virtues you claim to hold. Deep down, you suspect your honesty is costing you. Your generosity is being exploited. Your humility is being mistaken for incompetence. But instead of questioning whether these virtues serve you, you double down, becoming more rigid, more self-righteous, more convinced that the problem is everyone else's failure to appreciate your goodness. You've trapped yourself in what Nietzsche called ressentiment, the resentment of the powerless toward the powerful, masked as moral superiority. You can't compete on their terms, so you create a moral framework where not competing is reframed as virtue. Then you wonder why virtue isn't paying your bills, or advancing your goals, or creating the life you actually want. The rebellion isn't becoming manipulative, it's becoming perceptive. It's developing what Machiavelli called virtù, not virtue in the moral sense, but effectiveness, adaptability, the capacity to see reality as it is and act accordingly. Start with this practice. For 1 week, observe the gap between what people say and what they do. Not to judge them, but to calibrate your understanding of how humans actually operate versus how they claim to operate. Notice how the manager preaches teamwork, but rewards individual achievement. How the company values statement emphasizes integrity, but promotions go to those skilled at taking credit. How people say they value honesty, but relationships thrive on strategic mystery. How society claims to reward hard work, but inheritance and connections outweigh effort. You're not becoming cynical. You're becoming literate in the actual language of human behavior. Next, apply this to yourself. Identify where you've been operating according to should rather than is. Where have you been following rules that exist to constrain you while others break those rules and succeed? Where have you moralized your fear of taking action? Machiavelli observed that the lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves. One must therefore be a fox to recognize traps, and a lion to frighten wolves. You've been taught to be neither, to be a sheep that prides itself on not being predatory while being systematically preyed upon. The fox isn't evil, it's aware. It sees the traps. The lion isn't cruel. It's powerful enough not to be victimized. You need both: the perception to see reality clearly and the strength to act on what you see. This means developing what Robert Greene calls the 50th law: fear nothing. Not because you become reckless, but because you realize most of your fears are based on the illusion that following the official rules protects you. They don't. They just make you predictable. Practice strategic opacity. You don't owe everyone complete transparency about your thoughts, plans, or capabilities. Machiavelli understood that revealing everything about yourself gives others a map to manipulate you. Privacy isn't deception. It's maintaining sovereignty over your own narrative. Develop outcome-based ethics. Instead of asking, "Is this good or bad?" ask, "Does this serve my actual goals or just make me feel virtuous?" If your virtue is making you miserable, while vice is making others successful, you're not being moral. You're being controlled by a moral framework that doesn't serve you. Learn to distinguish between appearance and essence. Master the appearance that society rewards, while maintaining the essence that actually matters to you. This isn't hypocrisy, it's sophistication. It's understanding that you live in two worlds simultaneously: the world as it actually is, and the world as people need to believe it is. Navigate both. Here's what changes everything. Machiavelli wasn't teaching immorality. He was teaching freedom through disillusionment. And disillusionment, the destruction of illusions, isn't cynicism. It's liberation. You've been living inside a matrix of moral programming designed to make you manageable. Every time you chose being good over being effective, you were choosing the comfort of the illusion over the responsibility of freedom. Because seeing reality clearly means you can no longer blame your limitations on not knowing the rules. You know them now. And what you do with that knowledge determines everything. The ultimate Machiavellian insight is this: the world is not moral or immoral. It's amoral. It operates according to power, leverage, perception, and human nature as it actually exists. Morality is a tool humans created. And like all tools, it can be used for liberation or control. When you were a child, moral rules served you. They kept you safe, created structure, taught you to cooperate. But you're not a child anymore. And the moral framework that once protected you is now constraining you from becoming what you're capable of becoming. This doesn't mean abandoning all ethics. It means developing what Nietzsche called a master morality, a moral framework you consciously create based on what actually serves your flourishing, rather than unconsciously inheriting one designed to serve someone else's interests. The price of this freedom is the comfort of the illusion. You can no longer tell yourself that the world is fair, that goodness is always rewarded, that you can succeed just by following the rules. You have to see that the game is rigged, and then decide whether to keep playing the rigged game or create your own. Machiavelli's gift wasn't a handbook for tyrants. It was a manual for anyone brave enough to see how power actually works and decide for themselves how to engage with that reality. Some will use that knowledge to dominate others. Some will use it to avoid being dominated. Some will use it to change the game entirely. But everyone who sees clearly faces the same choice. Pretend you still believe in the illusion to remain comfortable, or accept the burden of seeing reality and take responsibility for what you do with that sight. Your mind has been tricked into believing that following the proclaimed rules is wisdom when it's actually obedience. Machiavelli showed you how to break the illusion. The question is, now that you see it, what will you do? Will you go back to sleep, or will you finally wake up and play the real game?